A sleek airliner soars through the clouds, its passengers cloaked in secrets, debts, betrayals, and a deadly dart poised to strike. Who among them is a killer? Why does a raven's mark haunt the clues? In 10 seconds, Hercule Poirot's sharpest case begins. Murder at 30,000 feet, where no one escapes suspicion. Will you unravel the truth before the plane lands?
Chapter 1. Whispers Over the Channel. The Prometheus airliner gleamed under the September sun at Le Bourget Airport, its sleek lines promising a swift crossing to London. Hercule Poirot, the meticulous Belgian detective with a mustache as sharp as his intellect, ascended the boarding ramp with measured steps, his polished Oxfords catching the light. He sought respite from a grueling case in Paris, a stolen manuscript of rare alchemical texts recovered from a rogue bookseller's attic. The victory had been satisfying, but the city's humid air clung like a bad memory, urging him to seek the crisp skies of England. Unbeknownst to him, the heavens were about to stage a mystery that would test even his formidable little gray cells. The cabin of the Prometheus was a study in elegance. Walnut paneling glowed under amber lamps, and seats upholstered in forest green velvet invited repose. Poirot selected a window seat near the front, stowing a slim leather case containing only a notebook, a fountain pen, and a vial of lavender-scented cologne, a nod to clarity amid chaos. As he settled, his eyes roamed the cabin, cataloging passengers with the precision of a jeweler appraising gems. Each face was a puzzle piece, each gesture a clue. Across the aisle sat Dr. Lucien Moreau, a wiry neurologist from Bordeaux, his fingers stained faintly with ink as he scribbled notes in a moleskin journal. His eyes, framed by half-moon glasses, held a restless intensity as if chasing thoughts that refused to be pinned down. Beside her was Clara Winthrop, a botanist with a weathered satchel brimming with pressed leaves and sketches of exotic flora. Her auburn hair was pulled into a severe bun, but her hands betrayed a nervous habit, twisting a silver bracelet etched with ivy motifs. Further back, the flamboyant opera singer Marcel Vasseur commanded attention, his crimson scarf a bold slash against his charcoal suit. His laughter boomed as he regaled a companion with tales of Milanese stages. That companion was Madame Hélène Corbeau, a financier whose reputation for ruthless investments preceded her like a storm cloud. Draped in sapphire silk, with a jade hairpin securing her chignon, she clutched a velvet pouch that hinted at documents too sensitive for prying eyes. Her smile was polite but guarded, a gatekeeper to secrets. The steward Julien, a lean man with a boyish grin and eyes that missed nothing, sealed the cabin door. "Mesdames et messieurs, welcome aboard. We'll soar over the channel in style. Drinks soon after takeoff." The engines roared, the plane surged forward, and the ground fell away, leaving Paris a shimmering memory below. As the Prometheus climbed, the cabin buzzed with soft chatter. Poirot sipped from his cologne vial, its sharp scent grounding him as he eavesdropped. Moreau leaned toward Winthrop, his voice low. "Your research on nightshade fascinates me, mademoiselle. Its alkaloids, such delicate killers. Have you isolated the atropine yet?" Winthrop's fingers paused on her bracelet. "Not yet, doctor. The plant is stubborn, like some patients, I imagine. But its secrets will yield, perhaps in London with better equipment." Her tone was measured, but her eyes flicked to her satchel, as if guarding a treasure. In the rear, Vasseur's baritone carried. "Hélène, you must attend my next performance at Covent Garden. Puccini's Fire deserves your ice." He gestured expansively, nearly upsetting his water glass. Madame Corbeau's laugh was sharp, like breaking glass. "Fire burns out, Marcel. My investments endure. Speaking of which, your loan, 3 months overdue. Shall we discuss terms, or do you prefer an audience? Her fingers brushed the velvet pouch, a subtle threat. Vasseur's smile tightened. Always business, Hélène. Let's enjoy the flight first. Look at those clouds, cotton castles in the sky. Poirot's mind catalogued these exchanges. Loans, poisons, guarded satchels, threads of motive woven into the cabin's fabric. He gazed out the window where the French countryside unfolded in emerald patches, bisected by rivers glinting like silver veins. The plane's hum was a steady pulse, lulling some passengers into a false sense of ease. Julien began his rounds, his cart a symphony of clinking crystal. Monsieur Vasseur, a cognac to warm the soul, he offered, his grin disarming. Make it 2, Vasseur replied, winking. 1 for me, 1 for my muse. For Corbeau, he poured a tonic with a twist of lemon. As taut as your wit, madame. She raised the glass. Flattery won't settle debts, Julien, but it's noted. Moreau requested tea. Earl Grey, no sugar. Simplicity aids thought. Winthrop declined, clutching her satchel closer. Nothing for me. I'm fine. Poirot accepted a glass of mineral water, its bubbles dancing like his thoughts. Merci, young man. Clarity in all things, yes? As the plane crossed into the Channel's airspace, a sudden jolt shook the cabin. A pocket of turbulence, nothing more. Yet it stirred unease. A woman in the back row, a librarian named Madame Dubois, clutched her rosary and muttered prayers. Poirot noted her fear, wondering what else she might conceal. He rose, stretching his legs under the guise of admiring the view. Pausing by Moreau and Winthrop, he offered a genial smile. Pardon, monsieur, mademoiselle. The sea below. It sparkles like a sapphire, non? Winthrop nodded, her bracelet glinting. It's mesmerizing. Reminds me of my fieldwork in Corsica, collecting sea lavender under moonlight.
Moreau adjusted his glasses. A detective, aren't you? I read of your exploits in Lisbon, a poisoned diplomat, solved in days. Poirot bowed slightly. Hercule Poirot, at your service. The mind sees what the eye misses. Moving aft, he caught Vasseur recounting a childhood memory to Corbeau. In Naples, I sang for pennies in the piazza, dreaming of La Scala. Now I owe my dreams to you, Hélène, though your interest rates feel like arias of doom. Corbeau's eyes gleamed. Dreams are costly, Marcel. Pay by month's end, or your curtain falls. The exchange chilled Poirot. Debts and threats, fuel for darker deeds. He returned to his seat, the plane now gliding smoothly over the Channel's waves, their crests tipped with foam like lace on a gown. Then a stifled cry pierced the calm. It came from Corbeau's seat. She lurched forward, her hand clawing at her throat, the velvet pouch tumbling to the floor. Papers spilled, contracts, IOUs, a list of names scrawled in red ink. Eyes widened in shock, then glazed over as she slumped, lifeless. Vasseur gasped, "Hélène, what's happened?" Julien dropped his tray, glasses shattering. "Madame Corbeau!" Moreau rushed over, his journal forgotten. "Let me see." Pulse faint, fading fast. He tilted her head, revealing a slender dart embedded in her neck, its tip glistening with a viscous sheen. Winthrop recoiled. "A dart? Here? Poirot was at the scene in an instant, his voice a beacon of calm. "Do not touch her, doctor. This is murder." He knelt, noting the dart's craftsmanship, ebony, fletched with a single raven feather. Nearby, a crumpled ticket stub lay discarded, marked with a faint smudge of green ink. He pocketed it discreetly. The cabin erupted in chaos. Dubois clutched her rosary tighter, whispering, "Mon Dieu, a killer among us!" Vasseurs' face paled, his scarf askew. Moreau muttered, "Poison, likely a neurotoxin, fast-acting." The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Emergency landing at Croydon. Remain seated." Poirot's gaze swept the cabin. The pouch's papers listed Vasseurs' debt at 20,000 francs, Winthrop's at 8,000. Even Moreau's name with a cryptic asterisk. "Mes amis," he declared, "the assassin is trapped with us. Disguise conceal, but Poirot reveals." As the Prometheus descended, turbulence, rattling nerves, Poirot's mind raced. Vasseurs' desperation, Winthrop's guarded satchel, Moreau's expertise, Julien's access. The stub's ink matched Winthrop's bracelet. Coincidence or clue? The Prometheus touched down, sirens wailing, but Poirot knew the real descent was into the labyrinth of human motives. His grey cells hummed, ready to unravel the whispers of death.
Chapter 2. Shadows in the Stratosphere. The Prometheus airliner screeched to a halt on the tarmac of Croydon Aerodrome, its engines exhaling a final sigh as sirens wailed in the distance. Hercule Poirot, his sharp eyes undimmed by the chaos of Madame Corbeau's murder, stepped into the drizzle-soaked air of England, his Homburg hat tilted against the wind. The cabin, once a cocoon of luxury, had transformed into a cage of suspicion, and now, as police cordoned off the aircraft, Poirot commandeered the corner of the aerodrome's lounge, a makeshift command post where he could orchestrate the unraveling of this aerial enigma. The dart, the ticket stub with its green ink smudge, and the spilled secrets of Corbeau's velvet pouch weighed heavily in his mind, each a thread in a tapestry of deceit. The lounge was a stark contrast to the plane's opulence. Linoleum floors scuffed by hurried feet, walls papered and faded maps of the empire, and a single chandelier flickering like a dying star. Poirot stood by a Rain Street window, his compact frame radiating authority as he summoned the passengers one by one. The police, led by a harried Inspector Japp, bustled about, but Poirot's presence commanded deference. "Monsieur Poirot," Japp said, mopping his brow, "this is a mess. A dart on a plane? It's madness. I trust you lend us your brain." Poirot's mustache twitched. "The brain, Inspector, is always at your service. But first, I must hear the voices of those who flew with death." The first to face Poirot's scrutiny was Dr. Lucien Leroux, the neurologist whose ink-stained fingers betrayed a restless mind. He entered the lounge, his half-moon glasses fogging slightly from the damp air. Poirot gestured to a chair, his voice smooth as velvet. "Doctor, tell me of your journey. You spoke of nightshade with Mademoiselle Winthrop. An unusual topic, no?" Moreau adjusted his glasses, his eyes darting like minnows. "Merely professional curiosity, Monsieur Poirot. Botany and neurology intersect in curious ways. Plants like belladonna can paralyze or kill. I study their effects to save lives, not end them." He leaned forward, his voice dropping. "On the flight, I noticed Madame Corbeau seemed agitated, clutching that pouch as if it were her heart." Poirot nodded, his fingers tracing the edge of the ticket stub in his pocket. And this dart, your expertise, it recognizes such a weapon? Moreau hesitated, his ink-stained fingers twitching. Possibly. In my travels to Indonesia, I've seen blowpipes used by tribes, silent, deadly. But here it's absurd. I was reading my journal when she gasped. I saw nothing. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Yet you saw her fear. Merci, doctor. You may go, but stay near. Next came Clara Winthrop, the botanist, her silver ivy bracelet glinting as she sat. Her face was pale, her bun loosened by the day's ordeal. Mademoiselle, Poirot began, your satchel intrigues me. It guards secrets, perhaps, and this green ink on your bracelet, curiously like the smudge on a ticket stub found near the body. Her hand flew to her bracelet, her voice sharp. I'm a scientist, Monsieur Poirot, not a murderer. My satchel holds specimens, foxglove, hemlock, harmless in their dried state. The ink, I sketch plants, my pen leaks. As for Madame Corbeau, I barely knew her, though she once funded a research trip to Madagascar. I repaid her, unlike some. Her eyes flicked toward the door where Vasseur's silhouette lingered. Poirot leaned closer. Repaid in full? Her pouch suggests otherwise. A debt of 8,000 francs, marked with your name. Winthrop stiffened. A misunderstanding. I settled it last month. Check her records. Records can lie, mademoiselle. The truth, it speaks louder. You may go. Marcel Vasseur, the opera singer, swaggered in, his crimson scarf a defiant splash of color. His bravado faltered under Poirot's gaze. Monsieur Vasseur, Poirot said, your debts to Madame Corbeau were substantial. 20,000 francs, enough to silence even your golden voice, no? His laugh was hollow. A trifle, Monsieur Poirot. I'm a star. Money flows like wine. Helene and I had an understanding. She gave me time. On the flight, we joked about my next role, a doomed lover in Tosca. Then she collapsed. I thought it was a fate, until I saw that dart. He shuddered, his scarf slipping. Who could do such a thing, in the air? Poirot's fingers tapped his chin. Who indeed? Did you see her pouch opened, perhaps by curious hands? He shook his head. I was too busy calming my nerves. Heights unsettle me. The steward, Julian, entered last, his boyish grin replaced by a pallor that matched the grey sky outside. Monsieur Julian, Poirot said, you served Madame Corbeau her tonic. Did you notice anything unusual? Her demeanor, perhaps, or another's actions? Julian rubbed his neck. She was tense, sir, kept glancing at her pouch. I served her as usual. Lemon tonic, no ice. When she fell, I was pouring for the librarian, Madame Dubois. I dropped everything to help. Poirot's eyes narrowed. And this ticket stub, found near her seat. Yours, perhaps? Julian blinked. Mine? No, sir. I don't keep stubs. I was working, not wandering.
As Julian left, Poirot paced the lounge, his mind a whirl of connections. The dart, ebony with a raven feather, suggested precision and exotic origins. The ticket stub's green ink pointed to Winthrop, yet her denial was plausible. Vasseur's debts screamed motive, but his shock seemed genuine. Moreau's knowledge of toxins was damning, yet his composure suggested innocence or calculation. Julian's access to drinks made him a suspect, but his panic felt unfeigned. A commotion at the aerodrome's entrance broke his reverie. Madame Dubois, the librarian, burst in, her rosary swinging wildly. Monsieur Poirot, I found this in my coat pocket. She held out a small vial, its label reading, Atropine, 2% solution. Her voice trembled. I swear it's not mine. Someone slipped it there. Poirot took the vial, his gloved fingers careful. Atropine,
derived from nightshade, as Moreau had mentioned. A coincidence? Unlikely. Madame Dubois, where was your coat during the flight? Hung by my seat, near the rear. Anyone could have touched it. Poirot dismissed her gently, his mind racing. A planted clue, perhaps to deflect suspicion? He summoned Inspector Japp. Inspector, have this vial tested for fingerprints and residue. It may lead us to the serpent's lair. Japp nodded, scribbling in his notebook. Anything else, Poirot? The passengers are restless, and the press is sniffing about. Patience, mon ami. The truth hides in plain sight, but it requires a spotlight. Poirot requested access to the passengers' luggage, now stored in a secured hangar. With Japp's permission, he examined each piece, his fingers deft as a pianist's. Moreau's satchel held medical texts and a curious map of Indonesian islands circled in red. Winthrop's contained dried plants, one labeled Atropa belladonna, and a sketchbook with green-inked drawings of leaves. Vassour's suitcase revealed a libretto for Tosca, annotated with frantic notes about debts. Julian's modest bag held only a pilot's manual and a photograph of a young woman inscribed, "To my dreamer, Elise." Elise? Poirot's mustache quivered. A connection to Vasseur, perhaps, or another Elise entirely. As night fell, the lounge grew colder, the chandelier's flicker casting long shadows. Poirot gathered the passengers for a brief announcement. Mesdames and messieurs, a murder has been committed, and the killer is among us. But fear not. Hercule Poirot sees through shadows. Tomorrow we delve deeper. Rest if you can, for the truth approaches like dawn. The group dispersed, their faces a gallery of fear and defiance. Poirot lingered, examining the vial again. Its cap bore a faint scratch, like a claw mark. He recalled Winthrop's bracelet. Could it have scraped the vial? Or was it Moreau's pen, used in haste? Vassour's flamboyance masked desperation, but could he wield a dart with such precision? Julian's access to the cabin was unmatched, yet his youth suggested inexperience in murder. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. A young constable handed him a telegram from Paris, sent urgently to Croydon. It read, "Corbeau linked to black market antiquities. Suspect smuggling ring. Investigate passengers' ties to Marseille." Poirot's eyes gleamed. Smuggling. A new thread in the web. He stepped outside, the drizzle now a steady rain, soaking his coat. The aerodrome's lights blurred in the mist, mirroring the haze of the case. But Poirot thrived in such murk. The dart, the vial, the stub, the pouch, each was a note in a symphony only he could conduct. As he returned to the lounge, he murmured, "The stratosphere hides its shadows, but Poirot's light will pierce them. En avant!" The night stretched on, the passengers confined to a nearby hotel under police watch. Poirot sat by a crackling fire, sketching a mental map of motives. Moreau's expertise could craft a poison. Winthrop's plants could supply it. Vassour's debts could drive him to desperation. Julian's proximity made him a silent threat. And Dubois, her vials suggested a frame, but her fear rang true. A memory surfaced. On the flight, Vasseur had dropped his scarf, bending to retrieve it near Corbeau's seat. Had he planted the stub? Winthrop had adjusted her satchel, her bracelet catching the light. Moreau had scribbled furiously, his pen leaking. Julian had lingered by Corbeau, his tray a perfect cover. Poirot closed his eyes, the fire's warmth a contrast to the cold truth forming. The killer had acted with audacity, striking in a sealed cabin. But audacity left traces. Tomorrow he would tug the threads. Alibis, lies, and secrets would unravel. As the clock struck midnight, Poirot rose, his resolve as firm as the oak table before him. The shadows of the stratosphere had descended to earth, but Hercule Poirot would chase them to their source.
Chapter 3. Echoes of the Enigma. The London fog curled around Baker Street like a conspirator's cloak, seeping through the cracks of Hercule Poirot's modest flat as he prepared for a day of unraveling the tangled threads of Madame Corbeau's murder. The Prometheus airliner, now grounded at Croydon Aerodrome, had delivered its passengers into a storm of suspicion, and Poirot, with his waxed mustache and unyielding resolve, stood at the heart of it. The ebony dart, the green-inked ticket stub, the atropine vial, and the cryptic telegram about a Marseille smuggling ring buzzed in his mind like bees in a hive. His sitting room, with its polished mahogany desk and ticking ormolu clock, became a stage for interrogation, where each suspect would face the spotlight of his little gray cells. Poirot had summoned the passengers to his flat, a neutral ground where he could observe their unguarded moments. The room was warm, a fire crackling in the grate, but the air held a chill of anticipation. A silver tray bore a teapot and porcelain cups, their delicate clink a counterpoint to the gravity of the task. Poirot adjusted a vase of white roses, ensuring symmetry, then seated himself behind the desk, his notebook open to a fresh page. The first to arrive was Clara Winthrop, the botanist, her auburn hair pinned tightly, her silver ivy bracelet glinting like a warning. "Mademoiselle Winthrop," Poirot began, his voice smooth as polished marble, "your knowledge of plants is formidable. Nightshade, hemlock, such dangerous blooms. Tell me, did Madame Corbeau's dealings ever touch your botanical pursuits?" Winthrop's fingers tightened on her satchel, her eyes wary. "She funded a trip to the Amazon once, years ago, for rare orchids. I repaid her, Monsieur Poirot, despite what her pouch claims. I was sketching in my seat when she died. Ferns, not darts. I produced a sketchbook, its pages filled with intricate leaves in green ink. See, my work is my life." Poirot examined the sketches, noting the ink's hue matched the ticket stub. "This ink, mademoiselle, it is distinctive. And your bracelet, it could scratch a vial, no?" Her cheeks flushed. "A coincidence. I'm no poisoner. I saw Vasseur fidgeting near her seat, though. His scarf caught on her armrest. Suspicious, if you ask me." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Suspicion is a seed, mademoiselle. We shall see where it grows. You may wait in the parlor." Next came Dr. Lucien Moreau, his moleskin journal clutched like a shield. He sat stiffly, his half-moon glasses reflecting the firelight. "Doctor," Poirot said, "your expertise in neurotoxins is most illuminating. Atropine, for instance, found in a vial in Madame Dubois' coat. Your thoughts?" His fingers twitched, ink stains stark against his pale skin. "Atropine is common in my field, used for eye exams, heart conditions. But a dart? That's primitive, theatrical. I was writing notes on synaptic blockers when she collapsed. I suspect Vasseur. He's desperate, drowning in debt. I saw him whisper to Julien before takeoff, something about settling scores." Poirot leant forward. "Whispers, doctor, they carry far. And your map of Indonesia, found in your satchel. Blowpipes are common there, are they not?" He blinked rapidly. "Research for a colleague studying tribal medicine. I'm a scientist, not a savage." "Science and savagery are not so distant, doctor. You may join Mademoiselle Winthrop." Marcel Vasseur swept in, his crimson scarf a defiant banner. His opera singer's charisma filled the room, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. "Monsieur Vasseur," Poirot said, "your debts to Madame Corbeau were heavy aria. 20,000 francs. Enough to drive a man to desperate notes, no?" Vasseur tossed his head, his laugh forced. "Debts are part of my art, Monsieur Poirot. Hélène and I had a deal. She'd wait until my next performance. I was practicing scales in my mind when she fell. Julien dropped his tray. Clumsy boy. Maybe he slipped something in her drink." Poirot's mustache quivered.
You point fingers, monsieur, but your scarf was near her seat, and whispers with Julienne. What scores were to be settled? Vasseur paled. A figure of speech. I meant my career, not murder. Words are weapons, monsieur. Wait with the others. Julien, the steward, entered last, his boyish grin replaced by a nervous tic. Monsieur Julien, Poirot said, you served Madame Corbeau her tonic, a perfect opportunity perhaps to deliver more than lemon. Julien's hands shook. I swear, sir, it was just tonic. I was serving Dubois when she gasped. I saw Winthrop adjust her satchel, though. Looked like she was hiding something. Poirot tapped his pen. And this photograph in your bag, inscribed to Elise, who is she? Julien flushed. My sister, sir. She's in Paris studying art. Nothing to do with this. Poirot dismissed him, his mind weaving patterns. The vial, the ink, the scarf, the whispers, each a note in a discordant symphony. He rose, pacing the room, when a knock announced Inspector Japp, his face grim. Poirot, he said, the vial's results are in. No fingerprints, but traces of atropine, pure and potent. And Corbeau's pouch had a hidden pocket, contained a coded letter mentioning a Marseille shipment and the Raven's mark. Poirot's eyes sparkled. The raven, Inspector, like the feather on the dart. We must dig deeper.
He requested a visit to the British Library, suspecting the coded letter held clues to the smuggling ring. Japp arranged transport, and Poirot, accompanied by a constable, arrived at the library's reading room, its domed ceiling a cathedral of knowledge. He pored over texts on ciphers, cross-referencing the letter's symbols with ancient Provençal scripts. The code hinted at a shipment of stolen artifacts, Etruscan relics bound for London via Marseille. Corbeau's name appeared as a financier, but another name surfaced. L.M. Lucien Moreau? Returning to Baker Street, Poirot found a new clue. A librarian's note slipped under his door, unsigned. Check Vasseur's libretto, page 47. He retrieved the libretto from evidence, turning to the page. Scrawled in the margin was a sketch of a raven, its beak sharp as a dart. Vasseur's hand, or a plant? Poirot summoned the singer again. Monsieur Vasseur, this raven in your libretto, it sings of guilt, no? Vasseur's bravado crumbled. I doodle when nervous. It's nothing. Nothing does not kill, monsieur. As evening fell, Poirot orchestrated a dinner at his flat, inviting all suspects. The table was set with crystal and linen, a deceptive calm. He served vichyssoise and roast quail, watching reactions. Winthrop toyed with her bracelet, Moreau sipped wine cautiously, Vasseur gestured wildly, and Julien hovered, refilling glasses with trembling hands. Dubois, invited as a courtesy, clutched her rosary, her eyes darting. Mes amis, Poirot said, raising his glass, a toast to truth, which hides but cannot flee. Madame Corbeau's death was no accident. Her smuggling ties, her debts, they weave a net. Who among you cast the dart? Silence fell, thick as the fog outside. Winthrop broke it. I saw Moreau with a penknife on the plane, sharpening his pencil. Could it carve a dart? Moreau bristled. Absurd. Vasseur was the one lurking near her seat. Vasseur snapped. Lies! Julien poured her drink. Check his tray. Julien stammered. I'm innocent. Dubois' coat held the vial. Dubois gasped. It was planted. I'm no killer. Poirot's smile was enigmatic. Accusations fly like darts, but only one struck true. Sleep tonight, for tomorrow the net tightens. The dinner ended, the suspects departing into the foggy night.
Poirot sat by the fire, the coded letter and raven sketch before him. The smuggling ring suggested a larger conspiracy. Corbeau, a kingpin? Moreau's initials, Vasseur's sketch, Winthrop's ink, Julien's access, Dubois' vial, each a piece of the puzzle. He recalled a moment on the flight. Winthrop's satchel had rattled, as if holding more than leaves. Moreau's journal had a torn page. Vasseur's scarf had a faint stain. Lemon tonic? Julien's photograph had a Marseille postmark. The clock struck 11, its chimes a call to action. Poirot murmured, "The echoes of the enigma resound, but Hercule Poirot will silence them with truth."
Chapter 4. Turbulence of Treachery. The London dawn broke through the fog like a reluctant confession, casting a pale glow over the cobblestones outside Hercule Poirot's Baker Street flat. The murder of Madame Hélène Corbeau aboard the Prometheus airliner had woven a web of suspicion, and Poirot, with his unerring instinct for truth, stood ready to pluck its strands. The ebony dart with its raven feather, the green-inked ticket stub, the atropine vial, and the coded letter hinting at a Marseille smuggling ring were pieces of a puzzle that demanded his little gray cell's full attention. Today he would venture beyond his flat, chasing clues into the labyrinth of London's underbelly, where treachery lurked like a storm waiting to break. Poirot began the morning with a visit to the British Museum, its grand columns looming through the mist like sentinels of history. The coded letter's reference to Etruscan relics suggested a connection to antiquities, and Poirot suspected one of the passengers might be entangled in the black market trade Corbeau allegedly financed. He had arranged to meet Dr. Evelyn Strathmore, a curator of ancient artifacts whose expertise in pre-Roman relics was unmatched. As he entered the museum's reading room, the air thick with the scent of old leather and wax, Strathmore greeted him, a tall woman with silver hair and eyes sharp as flint. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice crisp, "your telegram was intriguing. Etruscan relics smuggled through Marseille? A bold claim. Show me this letter." Poirot produced the coded document, its symbols scrawled in Corbeau's precise hand. Strathmore adjusted her spectacles, tracing the lines. "These markings resemble a cipher used by Mediterranean traders in the 19th century, adapted from Etruscan runes. It mentions a raven's mark, likely a seal on smuggled goods. Corbeau was no mere financier. She was a broker for stolen artifacts, moving them through private collectors." Poirot's mustache twitched. "And the passengers, Doctor? Could one be her accomplice?" Strathmore frowned. "Possibly. I've heard whispers of a botanist, Clara Winthrop, seeking rare pigments from ancient sites, and Marcel Vasseur, the singer, once tried to sell me a dubious amphora. Check their connections to Marseille dealers." Poirot thanked her, his mind alight. Winthrop's satchel, Vasseur's debts, new threads to tug. As he left the museum, a street vendor's cry cut through the fog. "Hot chestnuts! Warm your hands!" Poirot purchased a bag, their heat seeping through his gloves as he pondered. The raven's mark. Was it the dart's feather or something more? His next stop was a discreet tea house in Soho, where he had summoned Clara Winthrop for a private interview. The tea house was a haven of velvet curtains and porcelain teacups, its air fragrant with bergamot. Winthrop arrived, her ivy bracelet catching the light as she sat, her satchel clutched tightly. "Mademoiselle," Poirot began, pouring tea with deliberate grace, "your Amazon expedition, funded by Corbeau, did it involve more than orchids, perhaps relics, smuggled under botanical guise?" Winthrop's teacup trembled. "Absurd, Monsieur Poirot. I study plants, not plunder. Corbeau's loan was for microscopes, not artifacts. I was sketching in my seat when she died. Ask Julien. He saw me." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And this sketchbook, with its green ink,
Might it hide a cipher, like the one in her letter? She opened the book, revealing detailed drawings of belladonna and aconite. "These are my work, not codes." But Vasseur, he was pacing the aisle, muttering about freedom from chains. Sounded desperate. Poirot sipped his tea. "Desperation is a motive, mademoiselle. Merci, you may go." His next query was Marcel Vasseur, whom he tracked to a rehearsal hall near Covent Garden. The hall echoed with the strains of a piano, Vasseur's baritone soaring through Puccini's La Bohème. Poirot waited in the wings, his presence unnoticed, until the singer paused for breath. "Monsieur Vasseur," Poirot said, stepping forward, "your debts to Corbeau were a heavy score. Did they drive you to seek relics, perhaps to sell for profit?" Vasseur wiped sweat from his brow, his crimson scarf damp. "Relics? I sing, not smuggle. Helene's loan was for costumes, publicity, my career's revival. I was memorizing lyrics when she fell. But Moreau, he was reading about poisons, wasn't he? And that vial in Dubois' coat, suspicious." Poirot's fingers tapped his cane. "Suspicion is a mirror, monsieur. It reflects your own fears. Tell me, this amphora you offered Dr. Strathmore, was it from Marseille?" Vasseur flinched. "A gift from a fan, nothing more. I'm no criminal." Poirot dismissed him, noting the singer's trembling hands. A fan's gift or a smuggler's bribe? He needed more. The trail led to Dr. Lucien Moreau, whom Poirot found in a cramped apothecary near Harley Street, surrounded by jars of herbs and tinctures. Moreau was compounding a remedy, his ink-stained fingers precise. "Doctor," Poirot said, "your interest in neurotoxins is most curious. The atropine vial, could it be yours misplaced, perhaps?"
Moreau's glasses glinted. "Nonsense, Monsieur Poirot. My work is healing, not harming. I was annotating synaptic pathways when Corbeau died. But Julian, he lingered by her seat, adjusting his tray. And his photograph, that Elise, could she be a Marseille contact?" Poirot's moustache quivered. "A steward with secrets. Intriguing. And your Indonesian map, Doctor, does it mark smuggling routes?" Moreau laughed, sharp and brittle. "Academic research, nothing more. You're chasing ghosts." Poirot left, the apothecary's bitter scent clinging to his coat. Julian was his next target, but the steward was elusive. Poirot learned he was visiting a pawn shop in Whitechapel, selling a watch to cover debts. Poirot arrived at the shop, its windows cluttered with tarnished treasures. Julian stood at the counter, haggling over a silver timepiece engraved with a raven. "Monsieur Julian, this watch, it bears the raven's mark. A curious coincidence, non?" Julian's face paled. "It's my father's, sir. I'm selling it for rent, not murder. I served Corbeau's tonic, nothing else. But Winthrop's satchel rattled. Maybe she hid something." Poirot examined the watch, its engraving matching the dart's feather. "Coincidences are rare, young man. Where did your father acquire this?" Julian stammered. "A Marseille sailor, years ago. I don't know more." Poirot returned to Baker Street, the watch's weight in his pocket, a new clue. The raven's mark tied Julian to Marseille, but was he a pawn or a player? At his flat, a surprise awaited. A parcel from Inspector Japp containing Corbeau's personal effects from the plane. Among them was a locket engraved with the same raven symbol. Inside, a tiny photograph of a woman, labeled Elise, Marseille, 1923. Poirot's heart quickened. Elise. Julian's sister, or a code name? He summoned the steward again, confronting him in the flat's dimly lit parlor. "Monsieur Julian, this locket links Corbeau to Marseille and to your Elise. Speak the truth." Julian collapsed into a chair, tears welling. "Elise is my sister, sir. She worked for Corbeau, handling shipments in Marseille. I didn't know they were relics until last month. Corbeau threatened to expose her unless I helped on the flight." "Helped how?" Poirot pressed. Julian sobbed. "I passed her a note, that's all. I didn't kill her." Poirot's eyes softened, but his voice was firm. "A note can be a dagger, monsieur. Who received it?" Julian shook his head. "I slipped it into Vasseur's pocket. He didn't see me." Poirot dismissed him, his mind racing. Vasseur, then, was the key. He arranged a final rendezvous at a Thameside pub, the Anchor's Rest, where Vasseur was drowning his nerves in brandy. The pub was smoky, its wooden beams creaking under the weight of secrets. Poirot sat opposite the singer, the locket on the table. "Monsieur Vasseur, this locket, this note, your debts bound you to Corbeau's smuggling. Did you silence her to break free?" Vasseur's glass trembled. "I swear I didn't know about the note. I found it after landing, said to meet a buyer in London. I thought it was for a role, not relics." Poirot leaned closer. "And the raven's mark on your libretto, a doodle or a signal?" Vasseur's face crumpled. "A doodle, I swear. I'm no killer." As Poirot left the pub, the Thames glittered under a rising moon, its waters whispering of treachery. The locket, the watch, the note, each pointed to Marseille, to Elise, to a conspiracy larger than one death. Winthrop's plants, Moreau's knowledge, Vasseur's desperation, Julian's betrayal. Motives swirled like eddies in the river. Back at his flat, Poirot lit a candle, its flame steadying his thoughts. The raven's mark was the key, linking Corbeau's smuggling to one of these souls. He recalled a moment at the museum. Strathmore had mentioned a Marseille dealer named Le Corbeau, the Raven. Was Corbeau herself the mastermind, or a pawn betrayed? The night deepened, the fog pressing against the windows. Poirot murmured, "The turbulence of treachery shakes the soul, but Hercule Poirot will still the storm."
Chapter 5. Descent into Deceit. The London air was thick with the scent of coal smoke and impending rain as Hercule Poirot stood at the window of his Baker Street flat, the city's pulse thrumming beneath the fog. The murder of Madame Helene Corbeau aboard the Prometheus airliner had unraveled into a tapestry of deceit, woven with threads of smuggling, debt, and betrayal. The ebony dart with its raven feather, the green-inked ticket stub, the atropine vial, the coded letter, and the raven-marked locket pointed to a conspiracy rooted in Marseille's underworld. Poirot's little gray cells hummed, sensing the climax of this aerial enigma drawing near. Tonight, he would host a grand dinner at the Savoy Hotel, baiting the suspects with half-truths to provoke a slip in their carefully curated facades. The Savoy's private dining room was a vision of opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light over damask tablecloths, and silver cutlery gleamed like miniature swords. Poirot had invited the key players, Dr. Lucien Moreau, Clara Winthrop, Marcel Vasseur, Julian the steward, and Madame Dubois, under the pretense of discussing the case's progress. Inspector Japp, his notebook at the ready, lurked discreetly by the door, his presence a silent promise of authority. Poirot, impeccable in his tailored suit, stood at the head of the table, his mustache a crescent of resolve as he surveyed the gathering. The meal began with a delicate consommé, its steam curling like the fog outside. Poirot raised his glass of claret, his voice smooth as the wine. "Mes amis, we dine in the shadow of murder, but truth is a dish best served with care. Madame Corbeau's death was no accident. It was a strike planned with precision. Let us speak freely, for secrets spoil the palate." Clara Winthrop, her ivy bracelet glinting, sipped her soup cautiously. Monsieur Poirot, I've told you, I'm a botanist, not a killer. My sketches are of plants, not plots. But Vasseur's debts were a noose. Perhaps he tightened it around Corbeau's neck. Marcel Vasseur, his crimson scarf a bold accent, scoffed. My debts? A performer's burden, nothing more. I was dreaming of arias when she fell. But Moreau's journal, full of poison lore. And that vial in Dubois' coat, how convenient! Dr. Lucien Moreau's glasses flashed as he leaned forward. My journal is science, not sin. I was studying nerve agents, not wielding them. Julian, though, he poured her tonic, a perfect chance to slip in a toxin. Julian, refilling water glasses with trembling hands, flushed. I served drinks, not death. Winthrop's satchel rattled like it held more than leaves. And Dubois, she was praying, but her eyes were everywhere. Madame Dubois clutched her rosary, her voice quavering. I'm a librarian, not a conspirator. That vial was planted. Vasseur's scarf was near her seat. Perhaps he dropped more than fabric. Poirot's smile was enigmatic, his eyes darting from face to face. Accusations swirl like the soup, mes amis. But let us savor the next course, truth, seasoned with evidence. The main course arrived, roast pheasant with truffle sauce, its aroma rich and grounding. Poirot steered the conversation to the Marseille smuggling ring, watching reactions. Madame Corbeau was no mere moneylender. She trafficked in Etruscan relics marked by the raven. One of you was her ally or her betrayer. Winthrop's fork paused. Relics? I study plants, not pottery. But Vasseur's fan gifts, he mentioned an amphora. Suspicious, no? Vasseur's laugh was brittle. A trinket, not a treasure. Moreau's Indonesian map, though, smuggling routes, perhaps. Moreau adjusted his glasses. Academic curiosity, nothing more. Julian's watch, engraved with a raven, now that's a clue. Julian stammered. My father's, from a sailor. I'm no smuggler. Dubois whispered, Corbeau's lockets had a raven. I saw it when she adjusted her scarf. Poirot's fingers tapped the table, each accusation a note in his mental symphony. He produced the locket, its raven engraving glinting. This, mes amis, links Corbeau to Marseille and to Élise. Monsieur Julien, your sister, yes? Julien's glass slipped, water splashing. Élise is innocent. She worked for Corbeau, yes, but only as a courier. I passed a note to Vasseur as she asked, nothing more. Vasseur's eyes widened. A note? I never saw it. Poirot's gaze sharpened. Yet it was in your pocket, monsieur. A message to meet a buyer, perhaps for relics, or to silence Corbeau. Vasseur's scarf slipped, revealing a nervous tic. I'm an artist, not a criminal. The dessert course, poached pears and caramel, arrived, but the mood was anything but sweet. Poirot leaned back, his voice low. Let us consider the dart. Ebony, fletched with a raven feather, laced with atropine, a weapon of precision delivered in a sealed cabin. Who among you has the skill? Moreau cleared his throat. Any doctor could mix atropine, but a dart, that's theatrical, Vasseur's domain. Vasseur snapped. Ridiculous. Winthrop's plants yield atropine. She's the expert. Winthrop bristled. My plants are dried, useless for poison. Julien had access to her drink. Julien shook his head. I'm no chemist. Dubois was near her, praying. Maybe a cover. Dubois gasped. Blasphemy! I'm innocent. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the storm. Enough. The truth lies not in words, but in traces. He produced the ticket stub, its green ink stark. This, found near Corbeau's seat, matches Mademoiselle Winthrop's sketches. Yet her denial is firm. And this? He held up a feather, identical to the darts, found in Vasseur's suitcase. A prop or a signature? Vasseur paled. A costume piece for Tosca, not a weapon. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "And you, Monsieur Julien, admitted to passing a note. Was it a signal for murder?" Julien sobbed. "No, I only did what Elise begged. Deliver the note. I didn't know." The room fell silent, the chandelier's light flickering like a faltering conscience. Poirot stood, pacing slowly. "Let us reconstruct. Corbeau, a smuggler, held debts over you all. Vasseur, your career hung by a thread. Winthrop, your research was her pawn. Moreau, your knowledge could craft a poison. Julien, your sister tied you to her schemes. Dubois, your vial suggests a frame. But one of you acted, swiftly, silently." He paused, his gaze locking on Vasseur. "Monsieur, your scarf brushed her seat. Your doodle of a raven matches the locket. And the note, slipped by Julien, was your cue. You, the performer, played the deadliest role." Vasseur leapt up, his chair clattering. "Lies! I didn't kill her." Poirot's voice was steel. "You did not wield the dart, monsieur, but you planned it. The true killer," he turned to Julien, whose face crumpled, "was your instrument. Julien, coerced by your sister's plight, you fired the dart, hidden in a hollowed pen, as you passed her seat." Julien collapsed, sobbing. "Elise was trapped. Corbeau would ruin her. I had to." Vasseur's bravado shattered. "I only wanted freedom from her debts. I didn't know he'd kill." Poirot nodded, his voice softening. "The net closes, mes amis. Julien, your loyalty was your doom. Vasseur, your desperation spun the web. The smuggling, the debts, the raven's mark, all led to this." Japp stepped forward, handcuffs ready. "Good work, Poirot. We'll take it from here." The suspects sat stunned as Julien and Vasseur were led away. Winthrop whispered, "I suspected, but hoped I was wrong." Moreau adjusted his glasses, silent. Dubois clutched her rosary, tears falling. Poirot raised his glass, "To justice, which descends like rain, washing away deceit. Bon appétit, mes amis. The meal is complete." The dinner ended. The Savoy's elegance, a stark contrast to the revealed treachery. Poirot stepped into the night, the fog parting briefly to reveal a star. The case was not yet closed. Julien's sister, Elise, and the Marseille ring awaited, but for now the killer was unmasked. His grey cells rested, satisfied, as the city whispered its approval.
Chapter 6. The Grey Cell's Verdict. The morning mist clung to Scotland Yard's stone facade, its grey bulk rising like a fortress of justice against London's restless sky. Hercule Poirot, his polished shoes clicking on the marble floor, entered the interrogation room with the quiet authority of a conductor stepping onto a stage. The murder of Madame Hélène Corbeau aboard the Prometheus airliner had reached its crescendo, and now, in this austere chamber with its single barred window and oak table scarred by years of confessions, Poirot would unveil the final act. The ebony dart with its raven feather, the green-inked ticket stub, the atropine vial, the coded letter, the raven-marked locket, and Julien's tearful admission at the Savoy dinner had woven a tapestry of guilt. Yet the full truth, intricate, layered, and human, demanded one last performance from Poirot's little grey cells. The room was stark, lit by a single bulb that cast harsh shadows. Inspector Japp stood by the door, his notebook open, his expression a mix of fatigue and anticipation. The suspects, Dr. Lucien Moreau, Clara Winthrop, Marcel Vasseur, Julien the steward, and Madame Dubois, sat in a semicircle, their faces a gallery of dread, defiance, and resignation. Vasseur's crimson scarf hung limply, Winthrop's ivy bracelet gleamed dully. Moreau's glasses reflected the light. Julien's hands trembled. Dubois' rosary clicked softly.
Poirot stood at the table's head, his compact frame radiating certainty, his mustache a perfect arc of resolve. "Mesdames et messieurs," he began, his voice clear as a bell, "we gathered to lay bare the truth of Madame Corbeau's murder. A dart, swift and silent, ended her life at 30,000 feet. But the motives, they were earthbound, rooted in greed, fear, and betrayal. Hercule Poirot has followed the threads, and now the curtain falls." He paced slowly, his cane tapping a deliberate rhythm. "Let us begin with the crime. An ebony dart, fletched with a raven feather, laced with atropine, struck Madame Corbeau in the neck. The cabin was sealed. No one entered, no one left. The killer was among you, and the clues, they whisper their names." He held up the ticket stub, its green ink stark. "This, found near her seat, matches Mademoiselle Winthrop's sketchbook. A coincidence? Perhaps. But your satchel, mademoiselle, rattled with more than leaves. You denied smuggling, yet Corbeau funded your expeditions. Did you seek relics disguised as botanical treasures?" Winthrop's eyes flashed. "I'm a scientist, Monsieur Poirot. My work is plants, not plots. I sketched ferns when she died. Julien saw me." Poirot nodded, turning to Moreau. "Doctor, your journal brims with poison lore. Atropine, you said, is common in your field. Your Indonesian map hints at blowpipes. Were you the architect of this silent death?" Moreau's voice was steady. "I study cures, not killings. I was writing when she fell. Vassour's debts, though. Desperate men do desperate things." Vasseur bristled, his scarf slipping. "My debts were art, not murder. I was lost in Tosca's score. But Julien, he poured her tonic. A perfect chance." Julien's face crumpled. "I served drinks, nothing more. Dubois' vial, someone planted it to frame her." Dubois clutched her rosary. "I'm innocent. That vial wasn't mine. Vassour's scarf was near her. Maybe he hid the dart." Poirot raised a hand, silencing the chorus. "Accusations are arrows, but only one struck true. Let us examine the raven's mark. On the dart, the locket, Julien's watch. It ties to a Marseille smuggling ring, led by Corbeau, trafficking Etruscan relics. One of you was her ally, another her betrayer." He produced the locket, its raven engraving glinting. This held a photograph of Elise, Marseille 1923. "Monsieur Julien, you named Elise as your sister, coerced by Corbeau to pass a note to Vasseur. But was it only a note?" Julien's voice broke. "I swear I only passed it. Elise was trapped. Corbeau would destroy her smuggling work. I didn't know about the dart." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Yet you had access, monsieur, and a hollowed pen, found in your locker, could fire a dart. A steward's tray is a perfect shield." Vasseur leapt up. "He's lying. I didn't plan this." Poirot's cane cacked sharply. "Sit, monsieur. Your role is clear, but not alone. Let us trace the path. Corbeau held debts over you all. Vassour's career, Winthrop's research, Moreau's experiments, Julien's sister, even Dubois' library funds. But the smuggling ring was her true power, and it bred enemies." He turned to the coded letter. "This, found in her pouch, names L.M. Lucien Moreau, perhaps? Your map circled smuggling routes. Did you seek to cut Corbeau out?" Moreau's glasses slipped. "Academic research. I'm no smuggler. But Vassour's amphora. Ask him where it came from." Vassour's voice rose. "A fan's gift. I'm no thief." Poirot's smile was cold. "Gifts or guile, monsieur? Your libretto's raven sketch matches the locket. And the note Julien passed, it was your signal, was it not?" Vassour's hands shook. "I didn't know what he'd do." Poirot paced faster, his voice a crescendo. "Let us unravel the plot. Corbeau, a smuggler queen, held you all in her grip. Vasseur, you faced ruin, 20,000 francs, a career teetering.
You conspired with Julien, whose sister faced exposure. The note was your plan. Julien would strike, using a dart crafted from your stage props, its feather a nod to your raven persona. Julien sobbed. Elise begged me. Corbeau would destroy her. Poirot's gaze softened, but his words were firm. You, Julien, fired the dart, hidden in your pen as you passed her seat. Vasseur provided the feather, the idea. But another hand stirred the pot. He turned to Winthrop. Mademoiselle, your ink matches the stub. Your bracelet scratched the vial. You knew of the smuggling. Your Amazon trip yielded relics, not just plants.
Winthrop's face paled. I repaid her. I didn't kill. Poirot nodded. Not directly, but you supplied the atropine, extracted from your belladonna, believing it would free you from her debt. A silent partner in Vasseur's scheme. He faced Moreau. Doctor, your knowledge guided the poison's use, though you did not wield it. Your silence protected the plot. Moreau stammered, I knew nothing. Poirot's cane pointed to Dubois. And you, madame, were the scapegoat. The vial in your coat was planted by Julien to divert suspicion. Dubois gasped. I prayed for her soul. Poirot's voice rose, commanding. The truth is a mosaic, mes amis. Vasseur orchestrated, Julien executed, Winthrop supplied, Moreau advised. Dubois, you were their pawn. Corbeau's smuggling empire threatened you all, and you struck to break free. The Vasseur collapsed, weeping. I only wanted freedom. Julien acted alone. Julien shook his head. You told me it was the only way. Winthrop whispered, I gave the extract, but I didn't know. Moreau was silent, his glasses fogged. Dubois' rosary fell to the floor. Japp stepped forward, handcuffs glinting. Vasseur, Julien, Winthrop, you're under arrest. Moreau will need a statement. Poirot raised a hand. One moment, Inspector. The Marseille ring, Elise, the mastermind, remains at large. But for now, justice lands. The suspects were led away, their footsteps echoing like a fading overture. Poirot adjusted his tie, the room's silence a balm after the storm. He stepped to the window, the mist parting to reveal a sliver of sun. The case was closed, the guilty unmasked, their motives laid bare, debt, fear, ambition, all cloaked in the raven's shadow. Japp clapped his shoulder. Brilliant, Poirot. How'd you piece it together? Poirot smiled. The little brain cells, mon ami, they see what the heart hides. The dart's path, the ink's hue, the raven's mark, they sang in harmony. As he left Scotland Yard, the city's hum enveloped him. The Prometheus's tragedy was resolved, its echoes stilled. Poirot murmured, The sky's clear, the guilty fall, and Hercule Poirot restores order. C'est fini.